25 August 2022. This skidmark is one of those that will most probably get a lot of nasty responses, but I just have to do it because things are really getting out of hand. If you look on social media, the IQ70 keyboard warriors makes the most ludicrous statements about apartheid and race. They are really without constraint, and I don't know if they think that by typing that type of inflammatory messages they are gaining anything. Now, a few weeks ago, Viktor Orban from Hungary was in Texas and he made a speech there, and he addressed the issue of immigrants in Europe. And he made a very profound statement. And he said it was not about race, it was about culture. And that got me thinking. And the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. And it's just a pity that those that should actually hear this skidmark are incapable of comprehending things. They are more comfortable with a meme. And I cannot understand why there is not more black voices talking about this. Now let's go back in history. And the following meme says a lot. And that is something that we should pay special attention to. When the whites arrived in the Cape, they did not encounter blacks there. There were a few of the Bushmen and Hottentots there, but no black people. What is more important is that there was absolutely zero development. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And those white people came from Europe, where there were already at that stage cities and sewers and running water and railway lines, and it was civilized. And that civilization made it possible for them to explore the world. So they arrive here in Africa and they find nothing. And then more and more came and things developed. I'm not going to give you a history lesson, but then settlers started moving inland and started farming. And the first encounters with black people were on the east coast at the Fish River, and it was blacks that were stealing cattle from the farmers. So their first encounter with the local population was getting robbed of their cattle. And you can go read the history, it was long wars and things like that about it, but the fact is this: black people started working on farms, and they got under the influence of those whites. And under the influence of those whites, they got introduced to things like reading and writing and things like that. And obviously, a lot of them learned a lot from the farmers where they were working, and they were passing it on to their children. And the white culture is a culture of building and developing and exploring and pursuing education. And if you go and you look on the farms during the apartheid era, almost every farm, the farmers built a school for the black children. That's what the farmers did. And yes, you can say that farmer had other motives, ulterior motives, because he wanted schooled laborers. Because technology was developing and he needed people that were capable of working with the newer machines and things like that. So you can say it was with ulterior motives, but the fact of the matter is they contributed to educating the black children. And if you look at South Africa, the old South Africa, how South Africa developed, railways, roads, industry, all of that, mines, and then there's a lot of these races that they come out and they say, yeah, but it was built with blacks and all of that. I cannot understand how they interpret those things. Any society that develops, there will be people creating opportunities for people to find work. So these races are in fact actually saying that blacks must not work. They don't want black people to be employed. They don't want it. And they are happy with the high unemployment figures because those blacks are not working for white people. Now the question I have is, let's just look at the past 100 years. There was better communication and people knew more about each other, and so why why are black people not building towns and cities? Look at Oranje. It's only white people staying there, and it's always under attack from the racists. But that little town there, the people is developing the town, they're looking after, they're building infrastructure, they're building. And then you go and look at some of the black townships. It's dirty, chaos, nobody really cares what the environment looks like, but yet they've got a big mouth about Oranje. It's a cultural thing. White culture is far ahead of black culture. And if you look at some of the things, you look at this image, now that is crude, but that is now healers from the black population at work. And then here, this is what the white population does with their sick people. And then you look at this one, Cape Town under the DA, Cape Town under the ANC. And it tells a big story on its own. But the thing that triggered me was this story of Solidarity and AfriForum with a membership of less than 400k have used their membership fees and donations to build a university, provide bursaries, empower its members. What has COSATU with almost 2 million members done? And there is clearly a difference, the cultural difference between whites and blacks. The white union empowers their members and prepares their members for the workplace, for a workplace that is developing and that is requiring more skilled workers. And Solidarity as a union is investing in empowering their members to make it possible for their members to find jobs and be of use in the places of employment. What does the black unions do? They do nothing like that. When the black unions started off in the 90s, they should have embarked on getting their union members trained. But no, they were happy to take the monthly fees from unskilled workers and keeping them unskilled because the unskilled workers won't question the leadership. How a 300 million Afrikaans college was built under budget and ahead of schedule. Now we all know this story, most of us know this story. And this thread on Twitter had a lot of amusing and amazing responses. And then this guy, I admire the Afrikaner nation. There is something we can learn from them. Our leaders can learn from them. Take 300 million and put it in any government municipal account. Give them a due date to deliver and just watch that 300 million project balloon to $1 billion project. And in the end there will have to be commissions of inquiry to find out who stole the money. Now look here what happened in Bloemfontein. Under white rule, that beautiful building was erected. Look at the gardens and everything. And then look what it is in black hands. Destruction. No building. And it is a cultural thing. White culture likes to develop things, to explore things, to empower themselves with more knowledge and all of that. That is why I grew up and my father started off as a learner miner. We were extremely poor. But there is not a day that has gone by that he did not hammer us on the importance of getting educated. And his words were, get yourself educated that you don't end up working in a mine like me. And that is white culture. It is in our culture. And this tweet from Pumlani Mjosi. Here's how South Africa's ANC government should uplift the poor. Repeal BEE and minimum wage laws, slash taxes for all, strengthen education, privatize all SOEs, subsidize the poor to buy power from market, work with private sector to fund SMEs, secure the borders. And you cannot believe the vile responses he got. But let's look at the things that he's talking about. Repeal BEE and minimum wage laws. Why would he suggest that? Simply this. Currently the BEE laws that is there prevents white people from freely participating in the economy. White people cannot start a business and build it out and build it to a place where they employ thousands of people. It cannot happen because the government doesn't want that to happen. The government will force that white people to take blacks onto the boards and as shareholders, and then the end of that business is not far off once that happens. And that is why over the past 15 years or so I've noticed in the white community where a lot of the young white men were always looking for opportunities to start a business and build it out into an enterprise. That is no longer prominent in the white communities. White people, entrepreneurs, set up operations that is just big enough for him and his family to have a good life, and the supply provides the minimum number of jobs, and that's it. Because by staying small, they stay out of, in a large part, out of the BEE fiasco. The minimum wage laws makes it for black people, black entrepreneurs, almost impossible to start their own business because they are forced to pay that minimum wage. And where in the past you could start a small business and then get unskilled people, and I'm not saying don't pay them or pay them miserable fees, but you offer a salary or a wage, and he has the freedom to accept it or don't accept it. But the wage will be offered in proportion to what that business can afford. And this makes it for black entrepreneurs very hard to start up with, because the laws around labor will be a nightmare. And all of a sudden that guy needs a specialist to guide him through, and it makes it almost impossible for him to just spontaneously start a small enterprise and build it out. He cannot. Slash taxes for all. That is important. We are terribly overtaxed in South Africa, and that takes away this incentive to make profits, because what sense is there in making a profit and then having to pay around 40% tax on it and then pay VAT whenever you spend your part of it and pay more taxes when you put fuel in and everything? In the end of that R1 that you generated in your business, maybe 28 cents go into your pocket. The rest goes back to the government. Strengthen education. This is important. And again, look at the white communities. The white parents are pushing their children hard to study. I look at my own grandchildren and I see the effort that my daughter-in-law puts into them. And I am absolutely amazed at their abilities and skills at the age of where they are. And yes, when they come and visit me, I teach them whatever I can, and all of us are contributing in teaching the children and thereby empowering them to be better armed for the future. And that is a cultural thing. It's got nothing to do with race, it's cultural. And I have got a theory that many of the blacks today that are entrepreneurs and are having good lives and doing better for themselves and are clearly apart from the masses, those blacks are most probably descendants of the early blacks that worked on the settlers' farms and started picking up on the white culture, and they passed it on from generation to generation. And that's the story. You look today, if you look at some of those guys posting on Twitter and on Facebook and so, and if you really, they are just one step away from still being a barbarian. They do not have respect for anything. They don't have self-respect. They don't respect. And look at what they do when they go into the streets, how they destroy and destruct infrastructure. That is barbarian. That is not black. That is barbarian. White people don't do it because our cultural heritage has taught us well that you do not break down things that you want to use tomorrow. So these black racists, I feel nothing for them. They are suffering. And I actually feel nothing for them. They must suffer because they are the reason why they are suffering. Privatize all SOEs, subsidize the poor to buy power from market. Yes, those SOEs, it is proven that the blacks cannot manage those things. That is why they are in shambles today. And the BEE laws is robbing South Africa as a country from growth and wealth. That is what those laws are doing, because they prevent entrepreneurs, white entrepreneurs, from entering the market, and they destroy existing entrepreneurs in the market. And in the end, those officials walk away from the fiasco and they just shrug their shoulders. They don't give a damn about all the jobs that is lost and the wealth that is gone and all of that. And that is the reality. Secure our borders, yes. Everyone knows why. We've just got yesterday we started seeing those videos that's on social media of that doctor that told that Zimbabwean immigrant she's not going to treat them. And now there's a lot of blacks that want to slaughter that doctor. But the reality is, she is pointing out the truth. There was a Deputy Minister of Health that had exactly the same attitude, and she was fired by the ANC. And there was that matron in charge in one of the hospitals in Joburg that stopped treating the immigrants. It was a maternity hospital, and she refused to treat the immigrants because she could not provide service to the local community because 80% of the facilities were taken up by illegal immigrants. She was fired out of her job. And black people, they do not understand that their own leadership is focused on destroying their future. That is what is happening. Those blacks are happy to destroy the schools. They don't build out the education system. They don't build out the health system. They don't protect the borders, the illegal immigrants. There are people that are talking about between 15 and 20 million illegals in South Africa. For fuck's sakes. Think about that. How can our infrastructure support that? It's impossible. If you go and you look in Cape Town, look at those squatter camps around Cape Town. Where is all those people coming from? Where? And they expect Cape Town City to provide housing. It's impossible. It cannot. And then you go and you look at the breeding program financed by the ANC with this child grant, which is actually just a breeding program. Girls from 14 years old having babies. And there again, it's a cultural thing. In white culture, you don't get that because the white culture has taught the people you cannot have more children than what you can provide for. But if you look at the population explosion in the blacks, they are going to breed themselves into oblivion, but they are blind for it. If a black guy asks a white guy for assistance in his business, he is most of the time astounded by the amount of support he gets from that white guy. But go and look at how blacks act against other blacks that are successful. They start calling them kitchen boys and they start telling them that they are trying to be white. Because the average blacks, these keyboard warriors, they don't want to see a black person succeed. They don't want to see. They want to live like barbarians. That's all they are interested in. They do not want to grow. They do not want to better themselves. They do not want a clean city to live in. They do not want a clean street. They don't want it. They want rubbish and rubble wherever they can get it, and they want to run around like wild things in the streets and breaking and destroying and destructing. And I'm going to end this now because I'm really getting hot under the collar with it. And I'm going to leave you with this meme. You can read it, look at it, and think about it. And in conclusion, it is not a race thing. It is a culture thing. Culture. That is what it is. Nothing more, nothing less. Nothing to do with the color of your skin. Nothing to do with your ancestors. It is your culture. and the things that you believe in and the things that were taught to you by generations. And that is the problem. A huge issue for blacks is the lack of families without fathers. Absent fathers is a major problem in the black society. And I'm not here to say how that must be resolved or not. I'm just here to point out that fuck this racism stories. It is not about race. It is about culture. Please like, subscribe, share, and thank you for your support.